This week's Parsha is Parshat Shelach, which is the 37th Torah portion of the Torah, and the 4th chapter or Parsha in the book of Bamidbar, which is the 4th book of the Torah. And in this week's Parsha, we have what ends up being quite a turning point, quite a historic event for the Jewish people. Essentially what happens is God instructs Moses to send 12 leaders of the 12 tribes, into the land of Israel to scope out the land, to see what's good about the land, what's bad about the land, what challenges they might have, how is the produce, how is the land itself, how are the inhabitants, the people who are living there right now. There's a whole series of questions that Moses instructs the leaders of these tribes to go and to find out and to seek. And so the leaders of these 12 tribes, they go ahead and they go into the land of Israel and they make all of their observations. And at the end of the period of time, they come back and they join the Jewish people and they give over their report. And they talk about the wonderful bounty of the land. And they also talk about how the inhabitants are like giants and we are seen like grasshoppers to them, and we feel so small in comparison to them, and there's no way that we could overcome overcome them. There's no way we could defeat them in a war, that they are just so physically strong and we are not. We are weak, that it is impossible. And the Jewish people are so upset over this report. They are crying, they're mourning, they're telling Moses again, like, it would have been easier, it would have been better for us to live in Egypt, to stay in Egypt, to die in the land of Egypt, than to come out into the desert just to die. And of course this upsets Moses and it upsets Aaron and it upsets God as well, because they have just gone through the series of so many miracles, God taking them out of Egypt, the splitting of the sea, giving them the 10 Commandments, giving them the Torah, and now here the Jewish people are once again saying that they wish that they could go back to Egypt. It would have been easier, it would have been better for them there. And so they let sort of their fear control their emotions and their desires, instead of seeing all the amazing things that have happened to them and recognizing how grateful they should be, and how with God on their side, with God as their defense, yes, of course they can overcome the people in the land of Israel. But because of their reaction, because of their response, they ended up having the punishment of that generation. Anybody who was sort of over the age of 20 died while they were in the desert, and they spent the next 40 years in the desert instead of immediately going to the land of Israel, because this generation wasn't ready to go to the land of Israel. They didn't have the proper faith. And so what ended up happening was that then the next generation was the generation who could go into the land of Israel. And we also, in this week's Parsha, sort of concluding the Parsha, we are given over the law, the instruction to wear tzitzit, which are, in at least Orthodox communities, it's worn by men, and it is sort of like an undershirt with strings attached to each corner, tied in knots, and it's a very sort of meticulous, specific garment. And so we're given over the idea that daily men should wear tzitzit. They should wear this garment as a reminder to do God's mitzvot and God's commandments. And so when we look at the Torah, there is an idea that the order has a reason, that no two topics are right next to each other as an accident. It's not coincidental, but yet they must have some sort of connection. So what does this physical object, this physical garment that men are supposed to wear every day, what does it have to do with the Jewish people and the spies who gave over the report, and the Jewish people wishing they could go back to Egypt, and sort of the fear that they had? So the idea is that daily we should find physical reminders of our faith, of something spiritual. And so, for example, by wearing tzitzit, by wearing this garment, every single day we put them on, we see them, we wear them, that we'll remember that we are doing what God, we are serving God, that we are observing His commandments, that we are sort of dedicating ourselves to Him, and that we should have faith in God, that even when there are troubles and difficulties, like certainly for the Jewish people, this wasn't great news for them in the land of Egypt, that they were going to have to overcome these giants and these big nations, but that they should have had faith in God. And so we should have these daily physical reminders of our faith in God and of the faith that we should have. So again, in Orthodox communities, it's just something that men wear. They are the ones who wear the tzitzit every day. But there are other things that we can do, men, women, whomever, that could be meaningful physical reminders to have faith in God. So for me, for example, I really enjoy wearing Jewish jewelry. So I have a ring that has my name on it in Hebrew, and it's sort of a reminder that I'm a Jewish woman, and that I'm proud of it, and it's something that's really special and dear to me. My brother got it for me in Israel, so it connects me back to the land of Israel, and I find that to be something meaningful and important for me. My necklace is a tree of life, which reminds me about Torah and the value of sort of learning knowledge, and that knowledge and continuing to grow and to learn in different topics is what brings enjoyment to life. And there are other things, in Jewish homes we put a mezuzah on our door, and that is a reminder of sort of God's protection of our home. Maybe for us the reminder would come in the way of men who wear kippah on their head, or women who cover their hair in a certain way, as a reminder that God is above and God is with us and we have God's protection. So I think it's something that could be really important and impactful to find different, physical items that are reminders of the faith that we should have in God, and are reminders of the mitzvot and the commandments that we receive in the Torah. And that way we could maybe not repeat the mistake of the generation of Jews in the desert who sort of didn't trust in Hashem and didn't remember that they had Hashem with them, that Hashem had their back and would protect them throughout their time journeying, entering the land of Israel. And so I hope each one of us can find something that's meaningful and connects us back to these ideas. And I wish you all a wonderful week and a Shabbat Shalom.